In a moment, I'm going to ask this body to pass legislation requiring the Department of Defense to show Congress and the American people the September 2nd video of strikes that killed 2 survivors on a shipwrecked vessel after the administration's first strike disabled the craft. The American people deserve to see this video and to witness what is being done in their name. The administration has proudly published the footage of countless other strikes, including the first one from the very same day, believing it could do so without compromising any sources or methods used by our military or intelligence services. This fault footage should be no different. Since the beginning of this campaign of unauthorized strikes against boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, there's been one key feature from this administration, an eagerness to push out the videos of these attacks. We first learned about these strikes when video of an attack was published by the President of the United States, who posted the video of it on his social media. That was video of the first strike on September.
Wait for a moment and think about this carefully. This is one of those situations where you pause, rewind, and ask a simple question. Why is something being hidden? The government has been openly sharing military strike videos on social media, clip after clip, like a highlight reel showing power and control. But there is one video they do not want people to see, and the more that video stays hidden, the louder the silence becomes. This all started when a Democratic lawmaker announced a plan to force a vote. The goal was clear: to make the Department of Defense release footage from September 2nd. This was not a rumor, not a theory, a real video. The video reportedly shows a second strike on a ship, a strike that happened after the first one had already disabled it. It is said that 2 survivors were still alive on the damaged craft and were then killed. That is where things turn uncomfortable. Because this was not some unknown mission. The administration had already released footage from the same day. The president shared it himself. The Secretary of Defense followed with more clips, strike after strike, all public, all framed as strength and success. So now the question cannot be ignored. Why this one video? Why is it locked away and shown only to a few lawmakers behind closed doors? Why is everyone else told to simply trust them? This is not a technical issue. This is not about equipment or video quality. This is a political question, and it is exactly the kind of question that makes people uneasy.
September 2nd. And in the strikes since, strikes that have killed nearly 100 people in the last few months, the attacks have been announced to the world by the President and the Secretary of Defense, posting videos of them on their social media. And last week we saw the administration distribute lengthy footage of the seizure of an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. So why not release the video of the second strike that the administration ordered on September 2nd? Why is the administration hiding it behind closed doors, sharing it with only a small handful of members, and leaving the rest of Congress and the country in the dark? What is it about the killing of these 2 survivors that the administration is unwilling to let the people see? The legality of the entire campaign of striking these boats and killing those on board, rather than interdicting and arresting them, has been called into serious question. An attack on shipwrecked sailors is expressly prohibited by the laws of war. The rationale for hiding this video seems far less about any nebulous claim of the need to protect sources or methods, and far more about protecting the administration from accountability and oversight that the American people demand. This legislation is simple. Make this video available, first, in full and without edits, to all members of Congress. And then, if there is any legitimate basis to be concerned with the revelation of some source, method, modus operandi, or technology that isn't already apparent with the eager release of all the other videos, make it public with proper redaction. Surely, the same people who helped scrub and declassify every other video the Pentagon has publicly posted can be enlisted to do the same for this one. Or is the so-called most transparent administration in history afraid of what this video would show? Would it show a clear violation of the laws of war, which use the killing of shipwrecked combatants as the textbook definition of illegal?
Let's take a step back because context is important here. This did not happen in isolation. From the start of this campaign, the administration has carried out multiple strikes against boats in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific. These were not normal battlefield situations. These boats were suspected of trafficking, avoiding sanctions, or taking part in hostile activity. Instead of stopping the boats, boarding them, and arresting the people on board, the approach changed. The strategy shifted to direct military strikes. According to public statements and reporting, nearly 100 people have been killed in these operations over the past few months. That alone has raised serious concern. But what happened on September 2nd stands out from the rest. Lawmakers who were briefed on the footage say the first strike disabled the vessel. The boat could no longer operate. Survivors were clearly visible. Then a second strike followed. That detail matters. Under the laws of war, attacking shipwrecked combatants is strictly forbidden. These are people who are no longer fighting and are simply trying to survive. This rule is considered a clear red line and is taught as a core part of military ethics. So when lawmakers ask what this video actually shows, they are not being curious for shock value. They are asking whether the United States crossed a line it has long demanded others never cross. This is where the administration's explanation begins to feel weak. Officials say releasing the video could compromise sources or methods, but that claim becomes hard to accept when so many other strike videos have already been released. Videos from the same day, using the same technology, showing the same capabilities. If those videos were safe to release, why not this one? That is where the real tension comes from, because the other possibility is far more troubling, that the footage does not match the story they want the public to see. And that is why this issue has grown beyond a single video into a much larger fight over accountability. The legislation being proposed is actually very simple. There are no complicated demands or hidden steps. First, the full and unedited video should be shown to every member of Congress. Elected officials deserve to see exactly what happened. After that, if there are real concerns about sensitive details, those specific parts can be redacted. Then the video should be released to the public. This is something the Pentagon has done many times before. That's it. No drama, no leaks, no guessing, just transparency. So when an administration that calls itself the most transparent in history refuses to do this, people start asking tougher questions. Is this really about protecting classified information? Or is it about protecting political leaders from criticism? Would the video show a clear violation of the laws of war? Or at least a decision that looks rushed, careless, or unconcerned with international rules? Those questions are now hanging in the air, and they don't exist alone. This is not the only area where critics say the administration is avoiding accountability. Ukraine is another major example, and the contrast is hard to ignore. While Democrats are demanding transparency about military actions in the Caribbean and Pacific, they are also raising alarms about what looks like a step back from supporting Ukraine. One detail in the president's recent military budget request shocked many lawmakers. Funding for Ukraine was not reduced. It was completely removed. That includes intelligence sharing, coordination with European allies, and programs that allow Europe to buy US weapons to help Ukraine defend itself. This did not go unnoticed. Senior Democrats on defense committees caught it quickly. They are now scrambling to restore that funding, warning that abandoning Ukraine does more than hurt Kyiv. It strengthens Vladimir Putin. And this is where the political picture gets even more complicated. Critics argue the president has repeatedly avoided putting real pressure on Putin. They point to past meetings, including one in Alaska, where the optics alone raised serious concerns. They also point to calls for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to make territorial concessions, even as Russia continues to escalate its attacks. Night after night, Russian drones and missiles continue to hit civilian areas. Homes, apartment buildings, power stations, and basic infrastructure are being destroyed. This is happening repeatedly. Yet the response from the White House has been quiet. At best, it has been restrained. Many people feel it does not match the scale of what is happening on the ground. Even Ukraine's First Lady has spoken out publicly. She has called for stronger action and reminded the world that thousands of Ukrainian children have been taken from occupied territories. In the United States Senate, there is support from both parties for tougher sanctions and stronger measures against Russia. This part is often ignored. This is not only a democratic position. So when critics say that Putin is playing the president, they are not saying it lightly. They point to a pattern. Aggression is met with hesitation. Hesitation is then seen as weakness. In their view, this same unwillingness to face hard truths appears again and again. That brings us to another issue that will not go away: the Epstein files. If you want to understand why public trust is breaking down, look at how the Department of Justice has handled this case. A law passed by Congress required the DOJ to release Epstein-related documents, not summaries, not partial releases, the full files. They did not meet the deadline. They missed it by months. As of the latest update, the DOJ still has more than 5.2 million pages left to review, pages they have had for years. That number alone raises serious questions. Senator Chris Coons was blunt when asked about the delay. He called it embarrassing. He said the most likely reason is that the department is slow-walking the release to avoid information that could damage or embarrass the president and wealthy associates. This is not a fringe claim. It comes from a senior Democrat involved in oversight. The cost of this delay is real. To deal with the backlog, the DOJ has pulled hundreds of prosecutors away from national security and criminal cases. Active investigations have slowed, criminal trials have been delayed, national security work has been paused, all because the department failed to prepare for a deadline it knew was coming. Now they say everything will be finished by January 20th. Few people believe it, not only because the deadline was already missed, but because nothing about their actions suggests urgency or openness. Once again, the same pattern appears: delay disclosure, avoid accountability, control the narrative. That same pattern showed up during Jack Smith's testimony. When he appeared before the House, the hearing was closed. No cameras, no public access. Later, transcripts and video were released quietly on December 31st, late in the afternoon, when most people were no longer paying attention. If the goal was to limit public attention, it worked. But for the people who actually watched or read the testimony, what came out was shocking. Jack Smith did not hedge his words. He was direct, clear, and firm. He described how the president mishandled highly classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, documents kept in bathrooms, in basements, in unsecured areas. According to Smith, this was not a gray area at all. It violated the most basic rules for handling sensitive material. Now Smith is expected to appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee. This time the hearing could be open, and that matters, because transparency works both ways. If there is nothing to hide, there should be no reason to close the doors. Senator Chuck Grassley has long called himself a defender of whistleblowers and accountability. Critics say this is his moment to prove it. As the country moves toward 2026, the political pressure is rising fast. Voters are not just focused on investigations. They are worried about everyday life, healthcare costs, housing prices, grocery bills, a job market that feels uncertain. Many people are asking why billionaires seem protected while working-class families feel squeezed from all sides. Democrats believe this is where their message connects most. They warn about healthcare cuts that could leave millions uninsured or facing much higher costs. They compare that to tax breaks for the wealthy. Even voters who do not support big reforms like Medicare for all understand one simple idea: making healthcare worse for regular people while rewarding the rich is unpopular and unsustainable. What is striking is how bipartisan moments keep appearing. The push to release the Epstein files started with Democrats, but it gained real force when Republicans like Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene joined in. That pressure worked, and Democrats say it proves something important. Oversight still works when leaders are willing to use it. That is their larger argument now. If they regain control of Congress, they say they will not just talk about accountability, they will legislate it, they will force transparency, they will restore guardrails. Whether voters believe that remains to be seen. But taken together, the hidden strike video, the dropped Ukraine funding, the stalled Epstein files, and the quiet handling of damaging testimony all point to one pattern: an administration that projects strength, limits disclosure, and resists oversight when the answers could be politically uncomfortable. That is why this moment matters more than it first appears. Because once people start asking what is being hidden and why, it becomes very hard to make those questions disappear. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing. I appreciate you.